Greetings all, and welcome to another Tale of Woe. I'm your storyteller Tim, and today we'll be continuing our adventures in the Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. And for this section of the campaign, it's what I like to lovingly refer to as the Tale of Wallflower and Nuru, or the Adventures of Wallflower and Nuru. Because at this stage, after the group had been savagely destroyed by the direwolves, the other two members of the party, the players Eris and Brune were playing, weren't able to attend for a while. They had other commitment, which left me with only two other players, which were the players of Wallflower and Nuru. And I thought to myself, well, might as well continue with the story and see what these two can get up to. Hopefully they won't be getting into too much mischief. So basically, what I decided to do was set that Brune and Eris, from their injuries, were stuck in a coma. So they were staying with the burgomaster of the town of Vallaki. And so the other two were free to basically wander around, safe in the knowledge that their friends were being looked after. The first part of the tale was basically me dropping in a bunch of adventure hooks, because at this stage of the campaign, I basically thought to myself, I like the setting, but the storyline might be a little bit too complicated for two players. So essentially what I did was I came up with my own little hook, and then I just threw out a bunch of other hooks based on different sections in this, and just basically saw what it was that they wanted to do. Gave them essentially free roam to mess about in Barovia, as it were. So the first hook that I dropped was I actually invited them to have dinner with Strahd, which they accepted, and Strahd offered them a deal to allow them to leave Ravenloft if they were able to get information on the Mad Mage of Mount Bartok, or Baratok, however it was pronounced. Because before the players had arrived, this mage had shown up and incited all of the villagers in Ravenloft into rebellion against Strahd. And I thought to myself, it'd be interesting if Strahd wasn't necessarily the bad guy in this storyline. He was just, basically a vampire trying to live his life, and, this do-gooder mage came in from outside of his realm and started to stir up trouble. And so I basically went with that. I had Strahd say, "Oh, look, I do not care for this man. He came in and he incited all my people into fighting against me, rising up against me. I had to defend myself. I had to kill them all." And so Strahd basically offered both Wallflower and Nuru, if they can find out who this mage was and potentially even deal with him, that he would let them out of Ravenloft. That was actually the reason they were brought into Ravenloft, was because Strahd needed outsiders to deal with another outsider who was stirring up trouble. And unlike everything that goes on in Ravenloft, this was one person that Strahd couldn't find, and he doesn't like that, because Strahd knows what goes on all through his kingdom, but this was one person he was unable to locate, so he needed some outside assistance. And that's where the player characters came in. So they accepted their task, and also while staying at Castle Ravenloft, they managed to pick up an NPC companion by the name of Piddlewick 2. Piddlewick 2 is a small doll companion, basically a sentient harlequin child doll, made of clockwork, who tends to go on random murder sprees, but the group, the ladies seemed to enjoy his company, so he became the third member of the party. Well, the fourth member of the party, technically, if you count Stampy, their elephant. The other hook that I dropped for them was the typical one in the book, the or one of the ones in the book, the Wizards of Winery. Basically, that the wine supplies from the Wizards of Wine winery had stopped coming to the town of Vallaki, making everyone's lives miserable, so they were sent to investigate why the delivery was late. And so once they got back to Vallaki, they packed up their gear, loaded up on Stampy, and wandered off down the road to investigate this winery. Now, the fun part about the Wizards of Wine winery section is that it's a very spooky place because, and spoilers for anyone wanting to run the campaign, but the whole place is actually overrun by blights, basically vampire plants. There's different varieties of blights. There's vine blights, twig blights, and I can't remember what the third type of blight actually. Needle blights. Needle blights. That's them. And unbeknownst to the player characters, the winery grows its grapes using magical stones, and the druids of Ravenloft have wanted to secure these magic stones to enact a ritual to bring forth their tree god, or a tree that they worship known as Winter Splinter, which is basically a giant man-eating tree ent, which later on they have to fight as well. But for the initial encounter, the druids have taken over the Wizards of Winery, poisoning the wine and basically trying to retrieve the stones so that they can resurrect their big tree. So when the players arrive, they find the family that runs the winery. They're hiding in the vines, but then of course the vines start to shimmer and shake as they it's like, run, get out of here. And so Nuru and Wallflower, they managed to get the family out of the vineyard, and then they made their way to the winery. At this point, this is when the battle begins, which is very, very exciting. Basically, the way that the fight plays out is it says that 30 twig blights start running out of the vineyard, or the vineyard itself comes to life. Suddenly, all of these blights start swarming towards the winery, like basically a massive Zerg rush towards the winery. And it actually stipulates in the book that if they want to take refuge inside the winery, that the blights can't get in. They did not do that. And it's one of those situations as a DM where you're hinting as much as you can without basically telling them, hide in the building, you idiots. I don't want you to die at this juncture. But, at some point you've just got to, let them do what they want to do, which is what I did. And they made their stand. They were firing arrows. Wallflower was zapping with lightning bolts, which, again, being new players and me not really understanding how character creation worked, we didn't realize that a character couldn't have the lightning bolt spell, but whatever. So zapping lightning bolts into these blights, because they were made of wood, I thought to myself, well, they're going to be catching on fire. So basically it was like one-hit kills on all of these groups of blights. But then, as the battle rages on, in round 3 of the fight, you get a druid and 24 twig blights come from inside of the winery. So they have to deal with the fight on 2 fronts. So Stampy's going to town, smashing down on all these twig blights, and then the needle blights come out, and then the vine blights come out. It's all an absolute shit show. It went absolutely crazy, but they stood their ground. Their dice rolls were really, really well, and once again, Willie showed up. Basically, because Nuru had now connected with the wizard inside of her ring, she could once per day call upon his ability to basically take over and just start firing off magic randomly. And for 3 consecutive rounds, lightning bolts, and just obliterated the massive swarms of the blights. So they managed to take out, with the help of Piddlewink, with the help of Stampy, with some very lucky dice rolls, and with an illegal use of lightning bolt from the druid, managed to survive the siege of the Wizards of Winery. They were able to tie up the cart to Stampy, and they were able to take the wine back to the town. Well, they didn't quite make it all the way to the town. They had a slight detour on the way back, and I'll tell you about that in the next Tale of Woe. Catch you next time.